Thank you for joining me today. We are doing a yin class today. This is extremely slow, very gentle. All the poses are held for multiple minutes, usually at least 3 minutes, minus little counter poses that we do in between the main poses. And so as we're getting started, we're going to find ourselves laying all the way down onto our backs. And as long as your low back is not aggravated by this, let your legs come together into a cobbler's pose, the knees going wide, bottoms of the feet touching together. Hands can be wherever is comfortable, whether that's resting on the inner thighs, just adding a little bit more weight there. Maybe hands resting on the belly, hands on the heart, or even hands on the ground, just open. And so from this beautiful opening position, we're going to take some time to connect with an intention for today. I always use an intention so that way our mind is focused on a goal. For me, that helps me stay with my body and stay with my breath quite a bit better than if I'm just doing movements or certain positions in my body. It creates a whole different experience, and to me, that's what yoga is about. Yoga meaning union with all the different parts of who we are, the mental, the emotional, the physical parts. And so you've noticed there's been several days this week where our intention has been regarding earth or rooting or grounding, because we had Earth Day pass just a couple of days ago. And so today is very similar. And the specific quote that we're working on, I'd like to read it to you. This quote says, "It is only by grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies that the I am, our real presence, can awaken." And so as we travel through our class, we'll talk about different aspects of that quote. But that first idea I'd like to address is the grounding presence into our bodies, grounding our awareness into our bodies. And so I'd like us to take a few good, huge, deep breaths to try to get your presence in your body. Take a good breath, noticing the very temperature of the air coming in and how that's different than the air coming out. Take another breath just to notice that. Cool air in the nostrils. Warm air out. And notice any other sensations with the breath. Can you feel the air passing through the back of the throat? Where are you breathing at this moment? Are you breathing mostly into the chest and into the lungs? Are you pushing the diaphragm, almost as if we're breathing all the way down into our belly? Notice how deep you can make your breath and where that depth travels to right now, just naturally in your own body. And taking a quick moment to scan through the body, what feels like it's speaking to you the most? Do you have any muscles particularly stretching right now that are kind of saying hello to you? Do you have any areas of weakness, tightness, stress, or strain? And can we take a moment to breathe into those tighter, more difficult areas, giving that a chance to speak, so that it can be heard and then relax. Sometimes our muscles are like little children. They just want to be heard. And once they're heard, they don't have to do anything beyond that. But if they don't feel like you're acknowledging them, all they do is start screaming louder and louder. Are there any areas of that we can listen to? Enjoy the deepest breath in that we've had so far. And And after that beautiful exhale, we begin to lift the knees up so that we can spread the feet a little bit wider, feet planting as wide as the mat. Once we've got the feet at that distance, both knees begin to fall all the way over to the left. This brings that right leg into internal rotation and the left into external rotation. Usually the right leg is going to be the deeper of the two right now. Some of us can feel it in the knee. If it's a little bit too intense in the knee, come back up, shorten the stance, and then go back down. If you're wanting to go just a little bit deeper, your knee's happy, nothing bad is happening. The way that we can progress this further is to take the left ankle and rest it on top of that right thigh. That helps the right thigh to be brought even further down into that rotation. Now, it's not that we're trying to push that right knee down to try to touch the ground. That's not the goal. Rather, the goal is for that left ankle to be a little bit extra weight so that gravity can take over. So feel the groundedness of this pose. Feel how gravity really is what makes this work. Doing a few more beautiful deep breaths into the body. And let's try to find a way to ground our presence even deeper into this very shape. When things get just a little bit hard, we start taking shallow breaths. And actually that's more common than just sometimes. Most of the time, we're unconscious about our breathing at all, and that shallow breath is what takes over. And so the invitation today, can my breath remain deep and full through the majority of class, rather than that just being a sometimes thing. We're here in this shape just a little bit longer. Usually I don't need to readjust this pose to get deeper. There are some poses that will come up later in class where I'll give you that invitation to explore deeper and deeper as we travel into the 3+ minutes. But this one, usually you're already in a good, extremely deep place. And so in fact, if you need to back off, taking the ankle back off, that's okay. The goal is never to injure the body, but in Yin, we are trying to stretch right up to that edge, trying to make it so it's a deep stretch where we're actually elongating the muscles, as well as the fascia, even the tendons. And if we hold long enough, we can even begin to lengthen and pull against the bones, helping those areas, helping all of the areas in between increase their flexibility and aiding in that beautiful circulation. Now we've got one last breath on this side. And as we take that last exhale, start to release that ankle if you had it lifted up. We're being very tender with our knees, so very slow motion, begin to lift that right knee up. It might be helpful to do just a few windshield wipers, knees going to the right, knees going back over to the left. Notice how it feels. And then when we go back over to the right, this time we stay. So just enjoy that aspect beginning to happen. Perhaps you already can tell there's space in the knee, no pain in the knee, space for that right ankle to begin to rest onto the left thigh, helping gravity work particularly more effectively on that side. And so here, breathe into this area. How deeply are you grounded into your body at this moment? If you had to point a finger at the place where you feel this the very deepest, where would you be pointing to? Just notice. It's questions like this that help us bring additional presence into our practice. About 1 more minute left. This is the point where sometimes it's getting the most intense for this particular stretch. So again, if you need to back off, that's okay. Usually, if I deepen the breath, I can make it through the intensity. There was a story I heard of a Navy SEAL who they had to swim, to me, a tremendous distance. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they had to swim quite a distance in freezing cold water. And this Navy SEAL was, paddling and swimming, and they went quite far, but after a certain point, it felt like their muscles literally could do nothing else. And they said it was by the breath, by focusing on this breath, that they were able to find some source of energy from within to keep on going when everything else screamed that it was impossible. So enjoy that last deep breath into the body on this stretch. And with the exhale, we begin to drop the ankle. As we start to lift the knees back up, we're very, very gentle. Our muscles don't like to be held in such a long stretch and then be immediately brought into a quick rapid motion. If we're holding it for a long time, just reaping those benefits of yin, our muscles need us to go slow and gentle as we're making our way back out. They're not ready to run a marathon right at this moment. So perhaps another windshield wiper to each side. Once we finish that, we're going to work our way up toward a seated place. So you can press your way up, bring the bottoms of the feet together. Again, right away, we're going into a cobbler's pose. So know that if your hips pull you back, planting the hands behind you and just straightening the spine up is a perfectly fine option. Those of us that know that we can go forward, you are welcome to explore that version. We start off with that nice straight spine so that we are bringing our hips literally as deep as we can possibly tilt them. And then when the hips themselves and that low back can go no further forward, then we begin this gentle process of release all the way down. Gentle with the body, be tender, enjoy the slowness of this process. And here we can begin connecting with that idea, the I am presence that our quote speaks about. So what does that mean? The deeper we ground into our bodies, the closer we get to that I am presence. To me, the I am presence I first learned about that phrase, I am, from the Bible. And in fact, Christ, that ended up being the reason why he was crucified, because he used that term, I am. That I am was reserved for God himself when God spoke to Moses, saying, I am that I am. And so that I am presence essentially means that you're claiming the divinity within yourself. You're claiming that you are a piece of everything, that you can look at everything and see yourself in it. And when you're living in that presence, there's an extremely deep, very beautiful change that can happen in how we live, how we change our interactions with others. Because rather than seeing others as separate than ourselves, rather than seeing races and seeing ethnicities and seeing countries, you just see people for who they are. You see them for how they're acting, and you realize that you have that potential within yourselves to take any of the actions that others are taking. That means I can have compassion on a prisoner because I have that potential within myself to do the things that they did. I have that potential to steal something. I have that potential within me to do all manner of bad things, and so I can have compassion on others that did choose to do that. Likewise, I can have the hope that I can choose to do any manner of good things. I can live, that Mother Teresa-like life. I can live as that highest example of who I possibly think that I can become. I can become that because of the I am presence. We recognize all of it within ourselves. And so because of that, we can then begin to consciously choose our reality. And that's what that divinity within us acknowledges. We recognize, I can create absolutely anything in my world that I can imagine and that I choose to begin to shape. And so that's the I am presence. And so our quote talks about sinking deeper and deeper into this body to start to recognize that I am presence. And so in this pose, we're almost at our mark for the time here. So sinking any deeper, if there's still an ounce of space, an inch of space, we let ourselves take 3 very present, very aware breaths. With those deep inhales, the deep exhales. 2 more, grounding even further into your body. Rise up by finding the hands on the ground, the arms begin to straighten, and we gradually bring our spine right back up over our hips. Once we're there, we pick up the knees, allowing the feet to plant. Do a few extra windshield wipers here. Knees going right, knees going left. Feel what's coming alive in your legs. So far, we've focused largely on the hips, on that internal and on that external rotation. So here in this next pose, we begin to add in the next aspect of our body, starting to stretch through our hamstrings a bit more. So begin to work the legs towards straight. There might be some of us who cannot sit straight. Instead, you feel like you're being pulled backwards. So rather than sacrificing the posture of your body, rounding it back like this, you can either work the hands to flatten behind you or grab something to sit on, 6 inches or so. Books, bolster, blocks, whatever you have. And so if you're rounding back, you might just be working straight to straighten your spine for these next few minutes. that itself can include the hamstrings. If we're going forward, once again, we straighten our spine, because working the spine straight helps to grab the sitting bones, grab the hips, and then when we tilt forward with that straight spine, it's actually pulling the hamstrings into a deeper, more flexible shape. And so we begin to work our way forward, nice and straight. In Yin, we call this the caterpillar pose because it's almost like a caterpillar climbing up a stick and then curling all the way back down over the other side. And so we start off at that deepest edge. And then once we've found that deepest edge currently, we begin to just completely surrender and release. That's the difference between Yin classes and Yang classes. In Yin, we have this aspect of melting once we've gotten there, to allow the very muscles to relax, to allow the fascia to relax. In Yang classes, we would find ourselves grabbing onto something and pulling ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper. And while that is beautiful, there's nothing wrong with it. It's different. It's a different kind of beauty to find this Yin type of release. If you can even relax your head, that's great. Sometimes I'll stack fists so that way my forehead has something comfortable to rest onto. That's perfectly fine. That makes sure we don't add that extra tension into the neck. And if at any point in the next few minutes that we've got left in this caterpillar shape, if you feel like, oh wow, I'm actually not feeling the stretch anymore, that just means you got past that muscle layer. And so you're able to travel just a little bit deeper into this Yin shape, finding a new edge to release into. So you've got just a bit longer. Again, here I'll repeat that quote that we've been talking about. It is only by grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies that the I am, our real presence, can awaken. Grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies. So how much can we ground our awareness into that living sensation of this pose? How can we develop that muscle awareness, that body awareness? And I see this in yoga because a beginner will oftentimes say, it hurts. And so then I begin to ask questions. Is this a pain or is this a stretch? A pain would be something like sharp, stabbing, throbbing, shooting. Those are never allowed in yoga. We never want to feel that. But is it just a deep stretch? And if so, how much can you invite yourself to be in that living awareness of the stretch? Is there a space that wants to be explored? And once again, we're approaching the end of our time in this beautiful pose. And so as we're here these last couple of breaths, does your body want to come to a slightly deeper edge so that we can take 5 more good, deep, relaxing breaths? As that last breath comes to a beautiful conclusion, once again we press our hands into the earth to help us begin to rise step by step by step. When we're up, we're going to take a reverse tabletop position. This gives our muscles just a quick moment to contract. And so then in that beautiful release, our muscles are brought back to a state of homeostasis. And so planting our hands back behind us, plant the feet in front of us, and begin to lift the hips up as high as you can. Feel that arch. It's almost like we're not trying to just be flat, we're trying to dome slightly up. If we can hold about 3 more breaths, that's how long we'll be here. Another contraction with the inhale. And exhale, complete utter release with the glutes back to the ground. We begin to swing our legs underneath the body, and we're coming into a back bend. It's nice after such a deep forward fold to let our spine have the reverse chance to stretch out. And so you've got a few options here. Sphinx pose is our first option, forming the hands into the shape of the figure 11. We can either relax the skeleton down or muscularly pull our heart forward and through. So play with those options. What quality is the best quality for your body today? And if you're here in Sphinx just saying, I want more, I really don't get anything out of this pose, then you can begin to play with Seal. Hands planting wide, starting off further in front and straightening the elbows. Know that you can walk the hands in if there's more space, but pay attention to that low back. We don't need to crunch that low back. Oftentimes that's the thing that begins to happen when people are trying to go too deep too soon. So instead feel the whole spine lengthening together. It's almost like if you pull on a pearl necklace, all the beads follow one after one after one. We don't try to pinch off the string or the wire, because that can cause a kink in it that's not very elegant, that's not very beautiful. So rather, the whole pearl chain, the whole pearl necklace is being pulled long all together. And we just find a few more moments to arch, to release, and to breathe into this beautiful aspect of our bodies. With our heart very open like this, it's a lot easier to connect with the heart space, connect with others. And so take a moment to visualize a friend and notice how you can see yourself in the friend. Oftentimes they're friends because they behave very similarly to us. We could practically switch shoes with them and we would just enjoy the whole journey, getting to be with them, be a deeper part of their life. And then notice how sometimes the heart closes when you begin to think of somebody who's done something wrong to you. Realize that that person is human, just like you are, and that person is they have only ever done the best that they can with what they've been given. So because of that compassion, that realization that this literally is the best that they can do with what they have, with that knowledge, you can have a little bit of compassion toward them, realizing I can forgive. I don't have to hold on to a resentment to this person. I can forgive and learn from them so I don't end up making that same mistake. This is that point where those last 3 beautiful breaths in this shape. After that 3rd breath, we gradually begin to slide the hands in right under our shoulders. We work our way up toward a downward facing dog is our counter stretch. Begin to plant the hands and start to lift the hips. Legs don't have to be straight. Find movement that feels helpful, especially across the spine right now. Once this feels pretty complete for our body, we either walk our hands backwards or walk the feet forward, so you can end up in a beautiful forward fold position. And this is a pose we're also going to hold for a few minutes, this nice forward fold. So know that there's different areas where we can play with this pose. You can just bring hands into elbow creases and imagine that your arms are weighted with lead and the arms get closer and closer and closer to the ground. For me, that's a helpful analogy. You can also bring hands behind the back of the calves to try to pull you closer. You can work on stepping on your hands, feet going right onto the palms. You've got different areas to play with. So find the version that's most helpful for you today. And know that it's a little bit better for the knees to be slightly bent rather than to be hyperextended, locking backwards. So that teeny micro bend is absolutely fine. From here, paying attention to that low back, and I try to flatten the low back just a little bit more, finding slightly more length right there. Through that length, there's more possibility to release further and further down to the ground. Imagining one day I could get my head down to touch my toes. I could just find enough length. In one of my dance classes that I took in college, there was a guest professor we had for a few weeks, and he was pretty old. I'm not sure exactly how old, but he said that the older he got, the more time he wanted to spend in a forward fold. He said that it just opened his body and the fascia in such deep ways. So he began to spend 5 minutes or even 20 minutes some days hanging upside down, dangling like this. So can we find that kind of a love of this pose and a love for our body? Just being right here. Last 2 deep breaths. Eventually our hands start to drop down. We walk back in through the down dog shape. And eventually drop down onto the knees. I want to scoot ourselves slightly closer toward the top edge of our mat rather than the back edge. We're going to take saddle pose, one leg at a time for today. And so our left foot is going to be off to this left side of our hips, and we completely free out our right leg to extend all the way forward. Once we've got that shape, we're trying to sit down onto the ground, just having this left foot tucked off to the side. And from here, if this knee is not having it, it is not going to cooperate today. One way that you can make it a bit more gentle is, rather than having the knees together forward, you'll just swing this knee a little bit wider off to the side. Usually that's a good way to relieve some of that pressure on the knee. Otherwise, forward is a way to go slightly deeper. If you start to plant your hands backwards and you're already feeling enough of a stretch on the front of that left thigh, that quad, this is an okay place to stop. If you need just a little bit more, scoop tailbone under and up. That completely changes and deepens that expression of the stretch. From here, if there's any more space to go deeper, the next step is right elbow dropping down to the ground. If you still want more, left elbow drops down. And only if you still need more, you still don't feel enough stretch, you begin to work your way down onto the mat. Now, if at any point the knees started to lift off the ground from these poses, usually to me that's a sign that was the edge. You can't really go deeper than that. And so back up to that point, do the slight tailbone scoop under and up, and you'll start to feel it plenty. So notice all these areas of the body that we're hitting on today. We're getting full body stuff. We've gone quite deep into the hips, inner thighs, outer thighs, hamstrings, quads here. We moved up our spine. We'll include some other twisting type poses and other things like that as we're heading toward the finish of the class. But all these different stretches are those opportunities to get into that part of the body, because sometimes there's a person who, say, has such open hips, but hamstrings are a trouble for them. Or vice versa, maybe hamstrings are open, but hips just will not open. And so all of this variety of poses gives us a chance for everybody to find your area that's difficult, your area that's your challenge. And so that we all get this invitation to go into those deep, difficult areas of our body, giving us a chance to be present even in the intensity, rather than trying to bring our mind off of it. There's something that happens sometimes where people who are in a rough situation, they completely take themselves out of their body mentally. And so it's like their body suddenly becomes something different than their mind. And they've created a huge divide, a huge sense of duality, even within themselves. And so today, this is a practice. This is a chance for us to begin to bring our mind and our body back together, to find that yoga, to find that union. So when you're in the intensity, my recommendation, breathe. By the way, we're on our last beautiful breath through this pose, so take a huge inhale, a good exhale, and then we need to reverse every step we took to get into it. We start rising up to elbows, up to hands, lean over to the right to free out the left leg. Take a chance to let it go long, even leaning forward for a brief moment. And then lean over to the left so that you can tuck the right leg all the way back. Once it's there, remember you can swing the knee wider if you need it to be more comfortable. Maybe you're starting to come back to hands, scooping tailbone under and up. If you're dropping one elbow, this time it's left. If you're dropping both, right joins. And maybe sliding the elbows wide, we come all the way to our back if that's the edge today. And here is the next place to breathe. How is that left side comparing to this right side right now. Our body is like a book. It's like everything that we do writes a little bit of the story. So how is this story reading? Can we get into this part of our body? Notice where your mind is. Is it on the upcoming stuff of the day? Or is it still right here, right now? No judgments if we did let it wander. Just a goal of returning over and over again. Last 3 breaths for this half. So let the breath go deep and full, nice and relaxed. After that third one, we need to reverse our way back up and out. Planting elbows, planting hands, leaning over to the left to free out the right leg. With both legs forward, just take a brief chunk. So lean forward. Notice how the back and how the hips respond now. And then let's roll our way all the way onto our backs. Rolling down one vertebrae at a time. Once we've come all the way flat onto our backs, we're going to take a pose, a twisted pose called twisted roots. We plant our feet close to the glutes, and then our right thigh is going to wrap on top of the left thigh. The knees are close together rather than being just at the ankle. So it's the knees that are trying to wrap around themselves. Once we've got this shape, that bottom foot, the one that's touching the ground, helps our hips to bump an inch to the right. And then our knees can begin to fall over to the left. Know that your knees do not have to touch the ground. Usually that's too far for people. But trying to open out the arms to keep the very chest grounded, just ask your knees and ask your body how much they're gradually willing to relax through the duration of this twist right here. One of our last poses together. How much is the shoulder able to feel this? How much is the muscles of the back able to enjoy it? Do you even feel it perhaps through the hip or down the thigh? It's almost like we can take a moment to count all the muscles that are involved in this. And that's one way to become very present. Practically drawing a line, just tracing it. 3 more deep breaths for this half of the twist. After that third breath, hips flatten back down to the earth. Uncross this knee, recenter the hips. Settling into the second side, left thigh goes over. Hips get bumped just an inch to the left. And the knees begin to melt their way over to the right. Again, tracing that line or counting the muscles. What is experiencing this on this half? Again, where is our mind? Is it on a helpful thing? Or is it just on all the distractions that try to come at us all day, every day anyways? Three more beautiful breaths on this side. Gentle return after your third. Making sure the hips are recentered. We then extend our legs long. For our counter stretch, our last little stretch of the day, we take a banana pose shape to each side, letting the whole length of our side body have a chance to get stretched before we find our ultimate final relaxing shavasana place. So stretch the arms up overhead. We're going to begin moving everything over to the left side. So right ankle crosses over left, legs go to the left without lifting up either hip. Up overhead, grab onto the right wrist, and then arms also go over to the left without lifting either shoulder. Laterally stretching as far as we can to that left side. Another breath in. With the exhale, flatten yourself back out into a long shape on your mat. Second side, left ankle over right, legs go to the right. And up overhead, hold on to the left wrist, and arms go over to the right. We're making essentially a banana shape, laterally stretching to the right. full inhale. And with the exhale, we return long onto our mat. Hands can find themselves in the best space, on the floor, on the heart, on the belly. Legs can also find themselves in the best space. Maybe long, maybe feet planted, knees falling in, maybe cobbler's pose. The next few minutes, I invite you during the Shavasana to find your mind relaxing. Try to let your brain almost become like mush. And so your only type of awareness is to scan through the body and be present with whatever direction your mind wants you to head. So maybe this is physically scanning. You're starting at one point and scanning one by one by one, breathing into all those areas. Perhaps that's a very effective way to be with the body. Maybe even you start over if you find yourself distracted, so you can see how far you can get. Or perhaps you're just overall, almost like a race car, just zooming all around your body, finding a deeper and deeper presence, or feeling your weight rest down into the earth like you're on a comfortable, warm sand at the beach. Whatever image is most helpful, begin to explore through that, really feeling embodiment. Feel that grounding into the awareness of your own physical body. to deepen our inhales and our exhales. Introducing little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. Eventually finding a nice fetal position, rolling over to our side, taking another couple of breaths, maybe 3 or 4 breaths until we're ready to come up to a seated place. Eventually, as we arise, we find ourselves joining our hands together in front of our hearts. And we connect back to that quote of the day one more time. By the way, the quote is by George Gurdjieff, I believe is how you pronounce it. And it says, "It is only by grounding our awareness in the living sensation of our bodies that the I am, our real presence, can awaken." So with that intention to help lead us into this day, this grounding, this embodiment, this liveliness toward ourselves, with this to help lead us forward into this marvelous day, let's wrap up the time we got to share together with the sound of Om. Inhaling together now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste. Thanks for joining me, everybody. If there's anybody who doesn't know this already, each of these like basically 6 videos a week that we're recording, these 6 classes a week, we are putting them on YouTube afterwards. And so if you want access to that and you don't know how to find it, just on the chat box, you can send me a private message with your email and I'm happy to send you a link to that YouTube. And anybody who wants to stick around for a few minutes and chat with me, I'm happy to do that also. Sometimes it's nice to have this human interaction just a little bit. But anybody who's heading out, thank you so much for joining me. You guys are awesome and I hope you enjoyed the class.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's fun to see you again. I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Purple is my favorite color, so.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going out in public anywhere, so I might as well go for it.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
Cool. Thank you, Whitney.
You're welcome. I'm glad to see you. I didn't see you like in the beginning part, so I was like, I wonder. I was thinking about you as we were getting started. I was like, I hope you made it today.
I made it right as you started. I had to charge my tablet, so.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, Zoom takes up so much of the battery.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. How are you doing?
What did you say?
Oh, I just said, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm actually gonna pick up 2 baby puppies today to foster. So I'm like, yay!
Oh, wow. Very cool. Right on.
What did you say, Britt?
What kind of puppies?
One's gonna be a pit bull, and the other one is a husky.
Nice.
So I know, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know you've been wanting to foster them.
I know, and this, like, since we've extended now to May 15th, it's like, well, I think I still have time, so so we're gonna pick up 2 of them. And Joshua, in case you don't know, I've actually got 2 pit bulls of my own, and so we call them wiggle butts because that's what they do the very best. There's like, they get so excited, like if you give them toy, their butt is just going crazy. So, yep. So we're gonna get a wickle butt and a husky.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, totally. And how are your videos going through the end of the semester?
Good. I'm about halfway done. I got like 4 more to do, and then I got to do a solo show for the kids, and then I'm done for the year. So.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Are you putting these up on YouTube, or are they in more of a private thing?
It's a private thing for the kids.
Okay, very
The
cool.
performance I can probably put up. The performance I can put up, but so.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, I'll
share
look
that.
out for it. I found your YouTube channel too, so I'll have to play some of your stuff. Like already
Oh.
from what I've listened to, I'm like, wow, this is so good.
Yeah, there's a couple on there. Right on. I haven't updated it in a while, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll look out for some stuff, or let me know too if you post any. So I'll watch them.
All right, I will for sure.
Cool.
Well, I think I'm gonna get going. So.
Okay, cool. Have a good day.
All right, we'll see you later. Bye. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome. Yay! So did you practice in the living room today, or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool. Like at first